Hi everyone! For today's episode, we have two students who went abroad to Cape Town, South Africa. Get excited as they discuss their social and cultural experiences as well as realities they faced while abroad. Today we have a very exciting episode. We have Ivy and Ashnaa here today with us. Do you want to introduce yourselves really quickly?
Yeah, I'm Ivy. I'm a senior. I'm majoring in biomedical engineering, and Ashnaa and I both went to Cape Town together.
Okay, hi guys, I'm Ashnaa. I'm also a senior, and I'm majoring in brain and cognitive sciences and anthropology, and I went to Cape Town with Ivy. Some things I'm involved in on campus are I'm part of an a cappella group called Vocal Point, and also a part of WRUR, which is the U of R radio station.
Vocal Point was actually at one of our study abroad events, and you guys are really good. Do you remember?
Yes, I remember.
Yeah.
The storytelling one.
Yeah. But I remember I saw you up there and you were really good.
Thanks. That's
Have you been
nice.
involved in that all throughout college?
Yeah, since my fall semester of freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. And I saw you guys went to Cape Town, which is really, really interesting. There's not a lot of students who have gone there recently, so that really stood out to me. So I really wanted to hear your perspective about that, because I feel like some potential students could hear this and sort of be interested in that location as well. What made you guys initially draw you to doing a program in Cape Town?
So I was actually between Buenos Aires and Cape Town for a very long time, and I didn't know until October 5th, which was the due date, because I mostly just wasn't sure whether I wanted to be a place where I've always wanted to hike around Patagonia. I'm super big into nature, and I was definitely able to do that in Cape Town in the end, so I'm grateful that I made that choice. But in the moment, that had been a dream of mine for so long to be in South America, and so I really wasn't sure, but then last minute I decided on Cape Town because I figured it'd be a place where I would never think to go on vacation. It seems so far, and I just haven't heard much about it, so I thought this was the best opportunity to be pushed and to have support while I'm there. But I figured anywhere else in the world that I had dreamt of going, I could probably go on vacation and be able to manage by myself, so that was a big reason why I initially chose it.
Similar to Ashnaa, I was also between two programs. I was thinking about going to the University of Sydney in Australia, or going to UCT, which is the university in Cape Town. And I applied to scholarships for both of them, but I ended up choosing Cape Town because I thought that it was a better experience to push myself a little bit more out of my comfort zone. I have family in Sydney, and it's somewhere that I could totally go in the future, whereas I thought Cape Town would allow me to grow more as a person, just because it was something more unfamiliar.
And I know you guys talked about this a little bit when I met with you guys initially, but did you guys know each other before this program? Because I know you guys are friends now, but what about initially?
So I played Ultimate Frisbee for one semester. Ivy has been playing for years, but that was just the only semester I played, and I had one friend in it who knew Ivy, but Ivy wasn't playing that specific semester, so the timing was just a little bit off. But when I decided to go to Cape Town, I was telling all my friends about it, and our mutual friend Beth was like, do you know Ivy? She's going to Cape Town too, and she's the only other person I knew from school who was going, so we eventually kind of knew of each other, but then really got to know each other better when we got there.
And am I wrong, but you guys live together there, or?
We were in the same building, but we, every person who is in this IES program has their own room.
Yeah. So walk me through a little bit of what your classes looked like. I know, Ivy, you mentioned that you took classes at University of Cape Town. What was that like?
So I was in the direct enrollment IES program, which meant that I was going to Cape Town with IES, but we took classes at the university. And so I took 3 classes at the university. One was for my major, which was thermofluids, and the second class I took was a criminology class, and then the last one I took was just an introduction to African dance. And then I also took a class at the IES Abroad Center, and so those are classes just with IES students, and that was a class that Ashnaa and I shared called Community Development.
And what was it like at your university class? Were you able to interact with locals? Did you meet other people?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's the same thing as going to school here.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a room with a bunch of people that you don't know. And so, same thing, you like introduce yourself to them, you make friends, you see them pretty regularly because you have the same lecture times or you're working on projects together. And those were a mix of everyone. My dancing class was only study abroad students, but
Mm-hmm.
especially my engineering class and criminology, those were full of people from both South Africa and international students.
Nice. What about for you?
I didn't take classes at the university, but I took classes as part of the IES program. This program had like 6 people in it total, including me, and so, and they were all, like, we were all Americans, so I just, like, was pretty sad about that in the beginning, but it ended up working out fine. I still ended up making friends at the university through clubs and stuff.
Yeah, that's the one thing I will say. I also did an IES program, and all my classes with IES were obviously like all like American studying abroad kids, but I did take one class where I was able to be with locals from like a local university. So I would really recommend, if you have an option, all programs are different, but if you have an option to take a class at like a partner university, really recommend doing it, because you're able to really get and sit down with like students who are from like the actual area, or like maybe are still international but aren't necessarily like American IES students. So now I really want to move on to the social and cultural scene in Cape Town. What were some of your favorite cultural experiences or moments that stood out to you guys?
So, Cape Town does this thing called First Thursdays. So, the first Thursday of every month, all of the art galleries are open late. You get to go in. I think most close around like 8 or 9 p.m. or so. But usually, like, they'll have like wine, like some snacks, and just kind of get a chance to appreciate all of the like art that's put up. And there's a bunch of galleries around downtown. It's all walkable, so you can go from one to the other. And there's a bunch of vendors who will sell like jewelry, like clothing, all of that stuff. And then after all that, a lot of people will go out to bars or clubs, and that's kind of like a special little thing that we got to partake in.
Did you guys both participate in all of these First Thursdays? Because you guys were probably there for like, what, 3 of them?
I think I probably went to most. It depends on when you like leave home, because if you leave at like 5, you're able to go to like the galleries, but if you leave at like 7 or 8, I guess it just depends on like what part of the night you want to put emphasis on. Like if you're just feeling like an earlier night, like you want to just go to like the galleries, then like you would leave earlier and then maybe leave like the street at like 8 or 9, as Ivy was saying. But then if you wanted to just like eat dinner and go out with your friends afterwards, then you'd probably leave at like 8. So sometimes I did just leave at like 8, but then Ivy definitely experienced more of the gallery stuff. I definitely got there like way later than I was like supposed to.
It was really cool to see, because I think especially in Cape Town, people who are artists are from a lot of different backgrounds and ages, and I think that's not as common here. A lot of times when you go see art here, it's created by like a certain population and a certain age, and in Cape Town, like that really shows by the type of art that's created. Like there's so many mediums and really creative ways to showcase, especially when we went to like BOCOP and we saw those pieces of art, you know what I'm talking about, on the wall where they were like standing out. So there's just like, they were using a bunch of mediums, and it was a replica of like what a township looked like. And so it's really cool just to be able to see that, and to know that like Cape Town had a really big appreciation for the arts. It was very visible through First Thursday.
Yeah. Did you guys get to know about any like history about Cape Town that you guys could share?
I was just gonna talk a little bit about apartheid. So like apartheid was like huge. It was essentially just like, so in like here the way we separate like race and the way like society separates race through like, I don't know, like microaggressions and like racism on a daily basis is way different than Cape Town. So in Cape Town, like brown people are separate from like black people are separate from white people, and so through history, I won't get like into it, but essentially like the way apartheid remains present in Cape Town today is that it's very like Cape Town is very intentionally designed for the white people to live between the mountain, Table Mountain, and the ocean. And you'll even find like that's where all the suburbs are, like that's where all like the bigger houses are, like where jobs are, and then you'll turn the corner past the mountain, like on the opposite side of the ocean, and you'll literally just be met with like thousands of miles of like flat land with townships, or just like people will buy like a quote-unquote home for like 100 rand. So like very low price, but very like people who struggle to make it to the other side of the mountain because the city is designed to make it difficult for them to travel to the suburbs and to the city to work. And so that's the way that apartheid is still present in Cape Town today.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's definitely something that we observed on a daily basis that made us quite uncomfortable a lot, because we were living in suburbs between like the mountains and the ocean, and we kind of only observed like we were only able to engage with like one aspect of this like local life. And so yeah, I still feel like there's so much I don't know about Cape Town, but so much that I'm not meant to know about Cape Town, and like all I can do is like learn and read about it. I'm writing my thesis on spatial apartheid now and like about my experience there, but like in so many ways it feels wrong to try to go to a township and like observe as an outsider. And so just like knowing your place while you're somewhere new, but engaging where you can and learning where you can without imposing too much was really important for both of us, I think.
Yeah, that's like adding on to that. A lot of your experiences, your questions that you have, like everything there relates back to apartheid. One of the things that we experienced very early on into going was something called load shedding. And that's where the power is like turned off for X amount of hours a day, because the city doesn't have enough power to supply power 24/7 to everyone.
Okay.
And you like, when you think about that, you're like, how does like a capital city not have enough electricity to power everyone? And it's because up until 30 years ago, they only had to supply power for a very small population of people that were more, higher up in society. And so like now they're struggling to be able to give power out to everyone. Or when you think about like different communities and how it's like hard to access certain parts of these communities because there's highways or rivers, or as Ashnaa was talking about, like mountains, like physical barriers that separate communities. It's really hard to kind of break out of what existing community you're put into. So if you're living in a township, it's very like you're literally walking along highways to go to work, and then it's more difficult to secure jobs, and like so everything is kind of linked together. It's very visible in just like living there.
Okay, so now moving on to advice and final reflections. What is some advice that you would give to a student who is about to go on a study abroad experience in Cape Town?
I would say it's important to know what your goals are when you're going abroad. For me, I really wanted to interact with non-Americans. That was like a big goal for me. It was like knowing that before I went, something that I wanted to partake in was cultural exchange. And so I think I was really mindful in a lot of events that I participated in. I like wanted to be sure that I wasn't only sticking to people I was comfortable with or people I was living with. I think I did a good job of like branching out to various people, other international students. So I met people from like Norway, Germany, other South Africans, and just like in all contexts, is like when going to class, like I don't know, I really tried to make an effort to hang out with people from class outside of class, and just to get to know them better there, because for me, like one of my main goals was that I wanted to make friends that weren't from the US.
But I guess as I'm like reflecting on my experience through my thesis now, which it's been so long since I like was thinking about going, more than a year ago, so I guess I would just say, like, I didn't do much research about the history, but I think, like, part of being an international student studying abroad somewhere, I feel like it, in some way, is your responsibility to make yourself aware of the culture that you're entering, and you don't have to, like, immediately go and volunteer somewhere. I think that can be problematic in its own thing, but Ivy and I, through our program, found great ways to participate in the community and engage with the community and learn a lot. But I think that to a certain level, you definitely should make yourself aware of the history and like culture that you're entering a little bit, just so that you're sensitive to the present state of the city, especially Cape Town. I think specifically for Cape Town, actually, it's important. And then I would also just say that this is, I bet, what everyone says about studying abroad, but just to like, you're always going to be uncomfortable. Like every second of every day in the beginning might feel like really scary and really uncomfortable, but like that's the whole point. And I think if you want to be uncomfortable, then studying abroad in general is for you. But Cape Town specifically, like, there are so many pockets of comfort and places that reminded me of home. So I think it was a perfect mix of, like, a lot of new things and then some things that definitely made me feel connected to my roots, even just like in India, because there's just a large population of Indian people there. So I definitely felt comfortable in many ways. And then Ivy and I went on a couple of like trips around South Africa and Southern Africa in general. So I would recommend traveling if you can. It's a little bit harder in Cape Town than Europe, but I think it's definitely worth it, and there are so many incredible landscapes and sights to see. So I would say, like, every day try to, like, do one thing that makes you happy or that allows you to engage with, like, the nature there, because it's so special and unique. So yeah.
And even though being abroad might seem like a very long time, it goes by so quick. Like, I always tell myself, if I could go back in time and redo it, I would say yes to more things and, like, put myself in uncomfortable situations, because that's really how we grow. You can kind of fall into a routine abroad where you're just comfortable. You're, like, going to class, going to your usual, like, grocery store, coming back, like, you kind of fall into a routine. But kind of, like, going outside of that in your daily life, like, that's what, like, those memories will really stick with you. So if you guys could choose, would you guys go back in, like, the recent future? Like, would you guys go back and visit?
We've definitely talked about a reunion trip at some point. Almost everyone in our IES program always talks about this idea of going back.
A lot of people have already gone back.
Really?
Yeah, for
you
like
guys should
winter
go back
break.
with, like, your parents, because you guys will, like,
Yeah.
be, like, the tour guides for the area.
Yeah. I really, like, I want to go back, but not close enough where it, like, overtakes my memories that I had, like, all my memories that I had with my friends there. I want to go back when I feel like a totally new person, so I can, like, experience it in a really new way. Like, I don't want to just be, like, the same version of myself that I'm a different version of myself, but I think it would be cool to go when I'm, like, a little bit older and, like, be with the same people that I was with or with my family.
Yeah. Do you guys have any last minute things you want to say?
I think if you're choosing between a place that feels a little bit more conventional and maybe a place that you're a little more nervous about, I would definitely say just really lean into the discomfort and pick the place that you're more nervous about, because, like, there's no way that you can't make the experience positive for yourself if you really try and you put yourself out there. So I would say to try something new, and that starts from choosing your location. So that can be a conventional place as well, just somewhere that feels new to you.
I think it can also be really helpful to talk to people that have studied abroad before. For Ashnaa and I know even though we didn't know each other very well before we went abroad, having someone else's, like, a contact phone number as you go through the visa application process, and, like, getting your passport and putting everything together is honestly just, like, such a huge relief. And I don't know, it really helped to know that there was, like, someone else going through the same thing as we were, like, nearing it.
Yay. Good job, guys. That was really good.
Hi, listeners. We'd like to remind you that the opinions expressed by our guests on this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Center for Education Abroad or the University of Rochester. Our podcast aims to foster dialogue, critical thinking, and exploration of various topics related to education abroad. We encourage listeners to consider multiple viewpoints, engage in respectful discourse, and form their own opinions. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our community.